Hello and welcome. Apologies, my mic was turned off during the recording, so I'm doing a voiceover on this. This video is intended to capture aspects of a gearbox rebuild for 1954 R51/3. The gearbox is a spare and I'm building it up possibly for sale, in which case these videos will be documentation of what exactly has been done to the gearbox, or I may keep it as a spare for my R51/3 seen here. So I will move on to the shafts. I'm going to press fit the bearings onto the shafts now. Before I press fit the bearings onto the shafts, I want to demonstrate the condition of the shafts. This is the output shaft, and in my right hand I have the slider for fourth gear, third and fourth gear, and as you can see, the windows in the slider where the dogs slip into show some leading edge wear, but not bad at all. So I'm not going to replace the sliders. It fits nicely on the shaft. There's no wobble. So it's a keeper. Moving on to fourth gear, you can see the dogs there in the image, and the dogs are a little bit rounded on the leading edge, as you might expect, but they're not bad enough to warrant replacement of the gear. The teeth are all in excellent shape, and again, the gear fits the shaft very nicely, as does all of the gears, as do all the gears on the shaft. So I'm removing the first gear now and inspecting it. The dog windows look fine. The teeth look real good. The bush has a nice fit on the shaft. It's also a nice fit on the gear, so I'm not replacing it. And then the slider for first and second gear with the dogs on it is in very good shape. Now I'm not going to, I've already disassembled that splined bush and inspected the bushing underneath it, and it's fine. There's no need to replace it. The shaft mic's to spec. The bush is a good fit onto the shaft, and both the gears there that you see are in fine shape. So I'm now tooled up to press the 6304 bearings on both ends of the output shaft. The first bearing that I'm going to press on is on the first gear end of the shaft, which is at the bottom of the shaft, as you see it on the press there. These bearings were purchased from Mark Huggett in Switzerland. I'm just ensuring that the bearing is driven all the way home. And now I'll tool up to put the other 6304 onto the fourth gear end of the shaft. Now with the shaft tooled up in the press, I'm pressing on the fourth gear bearing, fourth gear end bearing, which is at the bottom of the press there. And just inspecting to ensure that the bearings are driven all the way home. So that's the output shaft done. I can set it aside and turn attention to the input shaft now. The input shaft is also in very good condition. However, there are some parts on it that I find need replacing. The compression spring needs replacing, as the original one is worn thin at both ends and ready to break. Also, the shims at both bearing ends require replacing. They're precision washers or large shims, large washers or shims that really kind of function as bearing stops. Those will get replaced. They're badly worn, both of them. Other than that, all the other parts on the input shaft will get reused except the bearings. The bearings, the small end of the input shaft has a specialized bearing in it. It's a very, very expensive bearing, about $80, and the other bearing is common. So I will assemble the shaft and then press the bearings on both ends. I'm now tooled up to press the cylindrical roller bearing on the small end of the input shaft. It's an NJ204 ECP, and it has a removable inner race, and so I'm actually pressing on that removable inner race of the bearing onto the end of the shaft. Then the bearing just slips over the inner race. Based on the condition of these shafts, I don't think this box has ever been into. Everything is in very good shape, and making sure the bearing inner race is pressed on all the way home. Now tooled up to press the 6205 bearing on the other end of the shaft. Removing the shaft to ensure that the 6205 bearing is driven all the way home so that I can get the circlip onto the end of the shaft. And it appears that I need to press that 6205 on a little further because I don't have enough clearance to get the snap ring in. Okay, that looks perfect. Done. Now I'll put the snap ring in. Input shaft done. Just a final inspection of the input shaft, and also slipping over the bearing over its inner race, checking fit there. So I'll go back over to the bench and put the snap ring in. Plenty of clearance there. Installing the snap ring here. Snap ring installed, just ensuring that the snap ring is fully in place and seated. You never want a snap ring coming off because improperly installed. So I'm going to spin it in its groove just to ensure that it's in place. Perfect. Slipping the bearing over its inner race, and there's two shafts ready to be installed.